You've probably seen these before. Almost every driver in Formula 1 has their own logo as part of their personal brand image. Most of them have it on their helmets, but they can also stick it on all kinds of merchandise for you, the fans. A shirt, a hat, socks, the official George Russell Funko Pop. But I had an idea recently. What if we could push these logos further and use them for the ultimate merchandising opportunity? A Formula 1 track. If a driver decided to buy thousands of acres of land, dig it up, and then lay down kilometres of tarmac in the shape of their logo, well, whose logo would be best? I made a track map for each of them, dusted off the old tier list, and then once and for all figured out the answer to the question that literally no one has ever asked before. Some of these tracks turned out alright actually, and some, they're absolutely cursed. But before we get into that, I need to quickly tell you about today's sponsor, MONGRIP. While I was researching this video, I saw these logos on tons of different merch. But you know what merch these drivers are not offering? An actual piece of a Formula 1 car that you can take with you wherever you go. MONGRIP make these beautiful bracelets from actual race-used tyres. Every bracelet in the F1 race collection comes from a real tyre used in a Formula 1 Grand Prix. MONGRIP then transforms them with these beautiful silver or gold clasps to turn them into the perfect accessory for any Formula 1 fan. All the rubber in these bracelets is obviously treated so it's safe against the skin, but the guys at MONGRIP leave it as pure as possible to preserve that real race tyre smell. If you've ever been to a Grand Prix, a different race event, a kart track, even if you're just a fan of treating every single traffic light like it's the start of a drag strip, you know who you are. It probably means you're a fan of that race tyre smell too. For me, this rubber smell brings me back to those times I get spent behind the wheel of a kart or even one of my own cars on a track day. Sadly, those times don't happen anywhere near as much as I would like. But with this MONGRIP Portier bracelet, I get to carry those memories with me wherever I go. Damn. These bracelets make the perfect gift for any Formula 1 fan you may know, even if that fan is, well, you. If you're trying to sort a birthday present, trying to take Christmas off early, or even if you just deserve a treat, check out the link in the description below, also shown on screen, to take a look at the pieces MONGRIP has to offer. I think you're going to love their pieces, and it supports Mr. V's Garage if you do. Now, back to the video. In order to find which driver's logo would make the best track, I've laid out the track routing for everyone on the grid in a way that's still recognisable as their logo. I realised early on while making these that I had to decide whether every single track was going to be clockwise or anti-clockwise. In order to avoid any complaints that I've made a track better or worse by giving it, the wrong direction, I decided it would just be more fair to make them all clockwise. It's the most common direction for racetracks, and also, if it's good enough for 10 billion clocks all around the world, it's good enough for us. Once all the track maps were made, I set about over many long evenings studying them long and hard, so I could rank them all, tier list style. There's obviously a few things we can't use to judge these tracks on. Elevation plays a big role on the quality of a track in real life, but sadly, none of these drivers have a 3D logo, so we're just going to have to assume that all of these are flat. There's also other things, scenery, history, crowd atmosphere. We've got none of that, but there are a couple things we can use to judge these tracks on, which I have summarised in a nice little acronym for you. Action, as in how likely are overtakes, battles, and other incidents like collisions or barriers around the track. Separation, as in separation between good drivers and great drivers. A good track hits that sweet spot of difficulty with enough variety of challenges in order for the cream of the driver crop to rise to the top. And finally, satisfying viewer experience. Is it varied? Are there some odd little bits that make it easy to tell which part of the track you're watching? Or is it just the same 20 corners repeated, with boring straights in between? Everyone knows the best straights are not straight. With all that in mind, we can judge each track by looking at their qualities and sticking them all on the tier list. Let's get started. We start things off with the current Haas pair of Hulkenberg and Magnussen, who have been a couple of very naughty boys, so I've had to disqualify them. Why? Because they don't have logos. The only thing I can find from Hulkenberg is this. That is not a logo. That's typography. They are not the same thing. How dare you? It's okay. His punishment, a multi-year contract at stake. I've seen some graphics that claim that this is Magnussen's logo, but I can't actually find any proof of that. It's not on his helmet, it's not on his website. What is on his website though is this, which once again, typography. These would obviously make terrible tracks even if I did try and do them, so I'm not going to. Hulkenberg and Magnussen disqualified. Go away and think about what you've done, and maybe hire a graphic designer while you're at it. We then have a couple of drivers who are on thin ice for very similar reasons. They both have something which can barely be described as a logo, and weirdly, they both recently had redesigns away from something more iconic. First up, we have George Russell, who used to have this thing, which, let's be honest, it wasn't great, but now he's replaced it with this. Thin ice, George, thin ice. We then have none other than Daniel Ricciardo. Now, you may be thinking that this is Daniel Ricciardo's logo, and it was for the longest time, but recently he's had a redesign, and now he uses... Daniel, mate, your clothing line on Shantae, I love it. It's amazing stuff. Where was that energy when it came time to design this? Thin ice. Thin ice. Anyway, these two things do count as logos, so let's do George first. This logo is obviously very square, and so turning it into a track makes an equally square kind of parking lot vibes track. I know it's a completely different layout, but it just makes me think Sochi. These weird straights up at the top are ruined by this shallow chicane thing, which is still fast enough actually that people may die trying to get through turn 4. Might spice things up around here, who knows actually. Horrible lack of corner variety, and I feel like I'll just get dizzy watching people go through this section between turns 10 and 15. Our first track on the list, horrible F. One thing I will say though is that George's track has a normal number of corners, high praise, I know, which is not something I can say for Ricciardo's track. What were you smoking, Ricciardo? 40 corners? Obviously, this is way too long and complicated to be a good Formula 1 track. Maybe it would be good for like an endurance kart track, but it sucks for open wheel racing. There's some sections I'm not against. This section, 19 to 26, is quite nice actually. 36 to 40 as well. But then, this has huge long swathes of just boring, mundane, bland. I reckon that a lap around here would be around 3 to 4 minutes. Obviously not good for on-track action. This one is going in F as well. Another driver with a pretty basic logo is Mr. Alex Albon, but actually, I quite like this one. I know it just says AA23 horizontally, but it's got enough stylization to make something pretty sexy. I'd be more than happy to wear some t-shirts with this on. Alex, if you're watching, if you want to send some free merch to the channel, you know where to find me. That being said, when you turn this into a racetrack, oh no. This gives me the vibe of an oval track's infield section where you're constantly turning off and back onto the oval. That is fine, of course, but oval track infield is not necessarily the most inspiring type of track, is it? This section from 10 to 24 does look like it would be a lot of fun to drive actually, with some good variety and corner angle, but much like Ricciardo, the overall track is just way too long for Formula 1. I do like the Roval vibes, and by the way that lots of these logos look, we may see it again in some more successful layouts. But this one is just way too long and a bit too stop-start for me. I need some more of those medium speed corners. As an actual logo, Sergio Perez's Silevamp may be my least favourite. It's just so janky, man. You know, sometimes your first idea is actually not your best idea. Try again. As a track, on the other hand, it's actually not that bad. I'm reminded of Bahrain when I look at this, which is a track which I love. We've got the decreasing radius section that is Bahrain's turn 9 and 10, not once, but 3 times on this track, and also 3 times in reverse. We've got these high-speed follow-throughs of 8, 9, 10 into the heavy brake event of 11. We've got a nice little hairpin. I'm liking it. The one thing it's lacking is maybe a longer straight, but I can get over that. I think this would be a great track to watch qualifying on, and it could even have good racing, particularly if people can make moves down into 4 or 14. This is our first actually decent track of the video. It's solid. I'm putting it in B. I still hate the logo though. When you put all the F1 driver logos side by side, you start to notice some trends up and down the field, which are mainly driver initials or driver numbers, written in italics. Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz have probably the two most basic of the logos, being literally a set of initials and a set of driver numbers, respectively, written in italics with nothing else. However, I can see potential in both of these. Oscar Piastri's logo turns into a nice simple part oval track, which I really like. It gives me Red Bull Ring, it's given me Indianapolis, it's given me Twin Ring Motegi if they ever used a combined road and oval layout. I think I would recommend maybe tightening up turns 4 and 11 to make just proper hairpins, give some of that corner speed variety. But as it stands, this is a proper power track, somewhere between maybe a Monza and a Zandvoort, and F1 fans, they love power tracks. I'm sticking Oscar Piastri in B as well. Then we move on to Carlos Sainz's logo, and actually the double striped font here gives us these nice interesting squiggly switchbacks at the end of the two straights. This logo is literally just two numbers written in a basic font, but it gives a very organic looking track. I love this section from 10 down through to the hairpin at 13, then down into this massive right-hander, which is reminiscent of turn 3 at Catalunya. I think you'll get some decent overtaking opportunities down into turn 1, and actually I think there's a chance you'll get cars able to go alongside between 2, 3, 4, 5, very similar to places like Bahrain. Not such a fan of this weird chicane in the middle of this straight. It's giving me Formula E vibes, which I'm sure I don't have to tell you is not a good thing. But that's really the only negative I have to say about the Autodromo Carlos Sainz. I think this is our first truly good track of the video. I'm sticking in A. This next group of logos I'm calling the Lego Letters bunch. They're still just driver initials, but they've been stylized by making them more blocky and angular, kind of like a 5-year-old has made them out of Lego. I know that sounds like criticism, but I should add that I do really like the Bottas and Leclerc logos. I think they're simple and compact enough to work great on any merchandise, or even on a website logo, social media icon. Good stuff, really. I like them. The Pierre Gasly logo, on the other hand, that's trash. Bottas up first, and when we convert this into a track, wait, do my eyes deceive me? That looks like a banger. We've got straights into hairpins, we've got another long sweeper like turn 3 at Catalunya, we've got a triple follow through into a hairpin, which will just be amazing to watch a car do in qualifying. This is a solid track. Really nice variety of corners here with some interesting concepts. But sadly, I cannot give it an S tier. It has maybe one too many of these corners all at the same angle, which could get boring. And then also, it's the wrong initials, Valtteri. People are going to think this is Jenson Button's track. This is meant to be a merchandising opportunity. Those negatives aside, this is still a really solid A tier track. Gasly up next, and despite the fact that in logo form, this is trash, it's a track I think actually could be quite interesting. It's not great, it's giving me Caesar's Palace car park track vibes with his 3 big finger things, but we've got some corner speed variety, low speed, high speed, medium speed corners, this tricky windy section where cars could maybe fight side by side if it's wide enough. It's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. Not as bad as some of the other ones we've seen so far. I'm going to stick it in B. And then Leclerc. While I like this logo, this track is whack, Charles, what the hell? It's giving me oval track infield without the oval, it's giving me Sochi Autodrome short track version, it's giving me slightly outdated kart track where they give you the race suits that clearly haven't been washed, and the Velcro at the front doesn't do it properly. Not great vibes, just too basic, too short, not fun. F. These 3 drivers I've grouped for obvious reasons. Okay, I get it, we've got 3 drivers whose names all start with L, but you could have made the logos a little bit more different, surely. Let's start with Sargeant, because of these 3 logos, this is clearly the worst. My first thought when I looked at this awkward section in the middle was that this would just be way too complicated. But as I started to work on this jank fest, actually, I started to get kind of into it. I started to find some of that variety I was sorely missing from the other tracks, with some twisty organic shapes, this lovely double follow through around the curve of the S. As I was working on this, I had a thought that I think no one has ever had before. Let Logan cook. And then I stepped back to see the glorious creation. Oh no. Give me that spatula back. Logan, you are never cooking again. This midsection is just way too complicated, and basically you have to do it twice. It is like something out the Monaco Grand Prix, then coupled with these boring ass Sochi straights. It's just too much for one track. It's basically like Baku, but with too much Baku. It's going in D. Norris and Stroll next. Now, as I was researching this video and looking at these two logos side by side, I was thinking to myself, surely one of these drivers copied the other one. These logos are just so identical. The only reason they don't use the same logo is because these two have different second initials. Obviously, Lando's logo is the more famous of the two, and so I, like many of you, assumed that Lance Stroll must have come along later and just copied him. But best just to verify that before I start throwing out accusations. I looked at old photos from each driver's junior career and plugged both of their websites into the Wayback Machine. I might have gone a little bit too far back and discovered that LanceStroll.com was first used to collect RSVPs for his bar mitzvah in 2011. Yes, this is the exact same website that now looks like this. Anyway, through my historical research, I found that Lando Norris first made a version of this logo for the 2017 season, and then Lance Stroll came along and released his one for the 2016 season. Wait, that's before. Are you telling me that Lance Stroll is the one with the innovative graphic design out of the two? Wow, Formula 1 never ceases to amaze me. Lando Norris, 2-bit hack confirmed. Now that my whole reality has been shattered, how well do they do as tracks? Lando Norris's is basically the same thing in both halves, apart from this little section here in the middle. It's given me Red Bull Ring vibes, or maybe Sector 1 at Baku, but just 3 times. That's not actually a good thing. I do like a track that reminds me of Spielberg, and it could be amazing if this is going up and down hills like Austria is, but we have to assume it's flat, and therefore C. Then, moving on to the OG L Boys logo, and actually, I think this one works better. The top of the L here is not as interesting, but I do have to give it bonus points for not just repeating the first half of the lap again. I'm a big fan of follow-throughs and medium speed corners, so I really like this section from 3 through to 7. And then this here, 12 to 15, a wind-up corner where the radius increases to match speed. Beautiful. Again, it's Austria vibes, but I think this one captures the magic of Austria just a little bit better. I'm sticking it in B. Max Verstappen's logo is very simple, but by adding in these little hairpins to show the outline of the 3 shapes, I think it makes a nice, quite varied track. It's short, yes, but I think you get some interesting action here. It reminds me of the Bahrain Outer Circuit as used in the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, which was a banger. It's a bit slower than that overall, but I think these fast sections into hairpins will make for some great TV. It's like having Cops or 130R, but like 4 times every lap. What's not to love? Well, maybe the G-forces. Despite the simplicity, I think this makes a good circuit. I'm sticking it in A. And that's good news, because if we were going to see any of these in real life as like a kart track, this is a strong contender. It's the kind of thing Max would do. Or even just in a sim, Team Redline. Make it happen. So now we come to a group of logos that are all very unique compared to the rest of the grid. Mind you, I said unique, not good. Hamilton has his famous wings logo, which has been on his helmet forever. Tsunoda has this nice leaf design, which I think is one of my favourites to go on a piece of clothing. Zhou clearly is unaware that the noughties ended, and then Esteban Ocon seemingly has 2 logos. Esteban, don't be greedy. It was a bit of a toss-up to decide which of these 2 to use. This one shows up on the header of his website, but then this one is on his helmet, and it looks like it's on maybe the most clothing items on his site. And to be honest, it is the much more interesting of the 2, so I put the EO81 logo in the bin and got to work on the signature logo. Finally, getting to a hand-drawn style of logo means we can actually see some organic shapes on a track, which is always a good thing in my book. Well, almost always a good thing, because Esteban, this is awful. To start the lap, we have straight, hairpin, interesting bit, hairpin, then into another hairpin, which kicks off maybe the worst section of a racetrack I have ever seen. As soon as I drew this, it reminded me of the old Abu Dhabi layout, which was a crime, quite frankly, and this is worse than that. I'm happy to see some organic shapes for once, but this track is just straight trash because of it. F tier. Zhou's Tribal Z suffers from a lot of the same issues here, with all of these tight, intricate details giving us something like 17 hairpins per lap. Every single lap around here would feel like a rally stage up the side of a mountain, not a good thing, and so despite some novel ideas, I'm gonna have to stick this in F tier as well. Honestly, my guy Zhou should feel lucky there is not a level below F because this track is putrid. Tsunoda's logo had so much potential, but sadly, we do need to include this little 22 at the bottom. It sinks the whole thing down. The lap starts off so strong until we get to about turn 5. It's just, no. After that, my love for this logo does not translate into love for this track. I do like a natural curvy straight, but you gotta link them together with some more variety in the corners. Tsunoda then is on the verge of greatness with some good ideas, but poor execution. I'm gonna stick this one in D. And then we have Hamilton. The Wings logo results in probably the shortest track of this video, which is more reminiscent of Mario Kart than it is Formula 1, but I do think it could work. As the first positive, this one is not all hairpins. We've got some low speed corners, high speed corners, medium speed corners, windy sections, very fast sections, including this 6, 7, 8, which is similar in ways to like a Sochi turn 3, but with a faster entry, and therefore the difficulty cranked up to 10. It's simple, but it's nice. Sakir 2020 vibes once again, which is always a good thing. I'm sticking this one in A. And with Hamilton in A, we now have quite a full tier list and quite a few contenders for the best driver logo track in Formula 1. But the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed one thing missing. It is, of course, Fernando Alonso. Alonso has one of the most unique driver logos, to go with some of the most unique driver merchandise, which includes, and this is not a joke, Fernando Alonso olive oil. But how well does his signature style logo translate into a track? It didn't go that well for old teammate Ocon. Unsurprisingly, we get a track with a very natural profile, but this time, it's not just full of hairpins. This whole section on the left gives me ideas of Jeddah or maybe Spa if it had a decent elevation change. This arrow section on the right gives me ideas of the never used Hanoi track. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, as we never raced there, but I do know it looks very dumb. But studying this thing, I do think we could get some great racing around here. Overtakes under braking into 1, 3, 6, 8, maybe even 17 if you can hang on together through here. And speaking of this section here, the wavy high-speed nature of it should give some amazing qualifying viewing, similar to something like Jeddah. I really like this track. I think it could be good. No wait, not just good. I think it could be great. I think it could even be our very first S tier track. And with that, we're all out of logos. Well, there you go. Once again, and completely out of character for this channel, Fernando Alonso is the greatest of all time, at least when it comes to logo-based track design. I should inform you that Fernando Alonso does actually have his own kart track in the north of Spain, but he missed a bit of a trick and did not trace around his driver logo when creating it. In his defense, he did have to go around the end of this actual airport runway when designing it, so I'll give him a pass this time. What do you guys think? Would you have ranked any of these differently? Do you think I've been too harsh on any of these tracks? Please bear in mind that Mr. V is never wrong, but I am interested in your opinions too, so let me know down below. While you're down there, like this video if you liked it and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Check out my referral link for MONGRIP in the description, and until next time, I've been Mr. V, and I'll see you guys later.